This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast with Bruce Hutchin, episode 001.
Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, where it is all about whitetail deer hunting tips, techniques, and the stories so you can become a more successful whitetail deer hunter. And now your host, Bruce Hutchin.
In today's episode, we have LL Bean's Guide to the Outdoors host, Bill Gorman, who is the great-grandson of the legendary outdoorsman and pioneering outdoor retailer, Leon Wood Bean, also known as LL Bean.
Bill, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Bruce. And one thing I have to say is I'm just a great-grandson. I'm not that old yet.
Oh, okay. Pardon me. I'm sorry. Strike that out. Thank you. And LL Bean stands for Leon Wood Bean. So let's start right there. What did your great-grandfather share with you about the hunting tradition?
To tell you the truth, just about every passion of hunting I have stems from LL. Obviously, it's in my DNA. He's someone who truly enjoyed the outdoors. In fact, our company's 103 years old thanks to his passions. And for me, I can remember, as early as 3 years old, 4 years old, where we would come up the rickety old stairs. And I say that because it was an old building, and it was a smaller building than it is today. And once you would crest the top of the stairs, there were different mounts on the wall. I remember there were beaver pelts on a spruce bough, roped out to dry. There were traps. There was hunting axes and hatchets and the knives and the different soaps and everything you needed for the outdoors he had. And for me, it was like a little kid walking into a candy store. I was just mesmerized. And the more I saw it, something struck a chord with me that the visual, the scents that go along with it when you go outside in the early season and, the leaves are falling and starting to decompose and you just get that smell. And it just felt right. And my whole life has been about being outdoors, being a humane, hunter. I understand we harvest animals. We kill animals. We do that for sustaining ourselves, our lives. And, I always jokingly say it's the original organic, but it is. And being outdoors and hunting and doing it for the right way and the right reasons is what makes it so personal and, passionate for me.
The tradition of hunting started in New England, where Maine is, a long, long time ago, because we were hunters and gatherers. And how did your great-grandfather have the vision to create such a company as LL Bean?
The funny thing is, there are two things I remember. One is, when he was 38, 39 years old, he just got to the point he was sick and tired of having cold, wet feet, went into camp, and finally came back and he said, I'm going to find a way to stitch a rubber bottom to a leather upper. He liked the way it felt. And what that led to was his first trial and error. Out of the first 100 pair he made, 90 were returned because the rubber wasn't vulcanized at the time. So when you pierced it with the stitching awl, it separated from the boot. So the most important part of that story to me is it brought out his character. You might have heard this before, do unto others, so treat people the way you want to be treated. He said to himself, he told everyone, if you're not satisfied, I want to know about it. I'll give you a new pair or your money back. And I believe to this day in my heart that treating people the way you want to be treated is the key to success, because people knew here's a person that wasn't just telling them a story. He stood behind what he said. And yes, they did have the faults. He paid their money back, and word spread like wildfire. Now you have a gentleman who's in the outdoors. It was a 3-page pamphlet, and it's grown into a giant corporation. But it all started with, and then still to this day is, treating the customer like you want to be treated, because the customer is part of our family.
Bill, share with us what you do in the Guide to the Outdoors show.
Well, I host Guide to the Outdoors. With LL being the size it's become, we're known more for clothing, apparel, travel gear, and such. And as you've already heard, I'm quite passionate, maybe on the border of sick and twisted about hunting and fishing and the outdoors. So years back, I decided we really needed to let people know what our heritage is, where we belong, and what we're all about. I petitioned a meeting with our CEO at the time, and I said, this is what I'd like to do. I want to start a show that takes us back to the roots of who LL Bean is, and it shows the truer side of it. And now with that show, it allows me to open my world, which hopefully is to a lot of people, the world of hunting and fishing, the outdoors, and then maybe give people one of those engaging things that draws them in. And if they don't already partake in the sport, it gives them that little nugget that grows into a want and a desire for the natural primal instinct of being outside and being a hunter and gatherer.
Bill, you've hunted all over the world, and what makes hunting in North America special to you?
Hunting in North America is special to me, basically whitetail. I love hunting in general. I love hunting all over the world. For the longest time, one of my biggest passions was Cape buffalo in Africa. And I've done that in a bow hunt, and that was by coup de grace. But with whitetails, it's affordable. They're almost present in every state, not all states, but in most. It's an affordable hunt, and it's an open hunt where the ability to go out and go hunting and pursue the animal is there. And then to have an animal that's with the eyes, the ears, the nose, all the senses of the deer, you're matching your wits against an opponent that we aren't equal to. I mean, they are well above us. So we do rely on sense. We rely on tree stands, optics, camouflage, and all that, just so we can get in the same ballpark. So when you consider that or match that up to, say, a chess game, you're playing a more than worthy opponent, and you're outside doing the right thing. And at the end of the day, it doesn't come down to the kill. It's the time spent in the woods and all that you see and do.
Let's talk about youth in the outdoors and specifically hunting. What can we do, you as a company, me as a grandfather, and our listeners, the guys and gals, how can we have the youth of today in this nation embrace hunting?
The youth of today, I think they want, the natural instinct is to want to be outside. I have a 4-year-old grandson who loves being outdoors, and my kids grew up being in the outdoors. What we have to do is keep the reinforcement that hunting is a true form of conservation. It's a responsible use of a renewable resource. We need to take the kids out, show them the experience, but let them know that it's not down to a shot. When you're out in the woods, show them when the sun comes up and look at the colors in the sky, smell the air, feel the breeze going by. I go out early morning, you hear the crickets and the bugs start first. First it's dead quiet, the bugs will start to make noises, then the birds pick up, and then you might see raccoons, porcupines, so just different birds. And that experience right there, I think, engages the youth because they're thinking now, this is just being involved in the outdoors. And then when you have the opportunity, you harvest the animal. Now, my son at 7, I'm going to say, was not ready to go on a deer hunt. I took him on one to be with me, and I followed his lead. So as a dad or just an adult with the youth, follow what the kids want. When we had a doe out in front of us, his first comment was, well, if I shoot her, what about her family? And he thinks the thought process for a deer at the time, a 7-year-old, would equate it to a human being. So I set his rifle down. I said, let's just talk about this. And I made it acceptable to sit and watch. Now, years went on that he decided it was so much fun being in the outdoors. The obvious next step for him now is to good thing. So if we pay attention to our youth, first of all, just think of introducing them to the outdoors. The next is introduce them to shooting, introduce them to the animal species and how they interact. And in general, I think it's taking care of the kids and getting them outdoors.
Thanks for that. Listeners, it doesn't take a lot to engage a young person, whether or not they're not your biological kids. It might be the neighbor kid that dad just isn't around anymore. Go out to them, meet them, and ask, obviously, permission just to take them out for a walk in the woods. Here, it would be a walk in the mountains. But just do it, and you'd be surprised how you gain tremendous insight, one, into another person, and two, the joy of helping somebody else uncover the joy of the hunt. Bill, talk to me about that 180 buck from Iowa. Unpack that for a while, will you?
Oh, my God. I hope I don't embellish too much, but I was back, like I said, I hunted with folks from Night Rifles, and my friend Gordy was one of the technicians there. So, of course, we're hunting on his property, and I have a cameraman with me because we're going to be filming this hunt. And the gentleman's name that was filming his name is Bear. So we strike out early in the morning, and I get to this spot that the depression in the land is right. There's enough snow coverage. I want to set up there. He gets his tripod set. The camera's good to go. My friend Eric is hunting just up a little bit higher level than we are, and everything's going along perfect. Well, Bear turns to me and he said, I want to be up on that hillside because the view, the sunrise, everything's going to be perfect. And when the deer comes in, it'll be great. As a hunter, I should have just said no. But, part of your job as the person on camera means you have to listen to the camera once in a while. And I took his lead. I said, all right, we started going up the hill. I hadn't gone more than 50 steps where I hear a booming voice from my buddy Eric Mallon saying, Bill, turn around. And I just turn around quick enough to see this incredible rack. I mean, his head was lifted at hearing Eric's voice, and this just rack stands up out of nowhere that I just felt like a pile of jelly right there. I remember picking up my muzzleloader. I put the sights on it, and I said to the camera, are you on it? He said, shoot the deer. So I take the shot, and it sounds funny, but for me, it was like being in a dream and watching, myself do this. I took the shot, and I didn't think I hit the deer. And my cameraman said, yeah, you're good. He was facing away from you because that deer, as soon as you pull the trigger, pulled a 180. And I said, oh, okay, I'll take your word for it. We took off into the woods, and my buddy Gordy was there before me, and I heard a bang. I was like, I must not have hit the deer because I didn't see any blood. The way the muzzleloader bullet had passed in, it wasn't an exit wound. And we get up to the spot, and sure enough, Gordy's over the deer. And he says, congratulations. I said, well, there's one hole in it. Obviously, I didn't shoot it. You did. And he said, absolutely not. And he pulls up the doe that he had taken. And from then on, I was just about to pass out. I mean, I'm a big guy. I've been through a lot, and I've shot animals before. But for 182, 183-inch deer, I mean, I just couldn't fathom that. It was such a beautiful animal that it took me the full day to actually comprehend what I had done. We had gone through all the kudos of everybody at night and all the other gentlemen I were hunting with. But until I finally sat there by myself with that deer, and, I'm a religious person, and I just had to give my thanks to God. It just sunk in, and I don't know, it's one of those things to this day that whole scene, the way it just unfolded, will never leave my memory.
That's priceless, and unless you're a hunter, it doesn't have to be a 180 deer. It's just priceless when you connect all the dots and, give thanks for the opportunities we have and the critters that we harvest, it's pretty special, Bill, and thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure. It was wonderful.
Now, let's talk about why that deer was pretty close to you before you took the steps to go walk up the hill. Unpack that for me.
The only way I can think this whole thing through was there was a fence post and a hedgerow almost side by side. And when we had decided to hike up the mountain a little bit, he hadn't come out and seen us. And with wind blowing from our back forward, he never winded us. And one of the most important things for me, in fact, the most important thing for me, is wind and knowing where the wind's coming from, where it's going. And I can attribute that deer to never locating me or seeing me and bolting, because once he came out, his head was down. He's sniffing. He's not smelling me. And I was fortunate to be, I'm going to say, probably 40 feet above him and 70 yards away, with the wind blowing totally away from him to me.
So he literally, if you had stayed where you were, he would have bumped right into you.
Exactly. And that's, as I go to say, you don't have to listen to your cameraman, but you want to if you want to make a decent show. But if I had followed my instincts, which is, one of those, you talked about aha moments, that's the most important one. My instincts that said stay there, but I let someone get the better of my judgment, and I followed their lead, and thank God it still unraveled the way it did. Who knows what would have happened at that point, but, at the end of the day, things worked out beautifully.
Listeners, if you hunted one day or 1,000 days, listen to that innate voice within you, because it's telling you something, and there's a reason it's telling you something. I can't explain it, but it happens. And Bill just gave you a perfect example. He knew what he was supposed to do, and other forces came in and responsibilities, but listen to that voice. Bill, let's talk about the hunting heritage, conservation, and what it means to the L.L. Bean family.
Well, again, L.L. Bean is founded on the principles of the outdoors. And with L.L., it did start with hunting and fishing. As, most of the sports we're in, everything you can track the roots, they go down to hunting and fishing in the outdoors. We sell canoes and kayaks. Well, LL had to use canoes to get to different hunting areas. We have tents, we have camping gear, we have cots, we have axes, because that's what a hunter or fisherman would use. And a lot of the active sports we're in today, the bike, boat, ski, a lot of it is directly attributed to hunting, fishing, and the outdoors. So just with that bit, it shows that our company stems from the actual outdoors, the heritage, and the conservation. And it's grown into something now where we appreciate the outdoors, and we just want to inspire more people to be involved in the outdoors. In fact, we've started within the past 2 decades outdoor discovery schools where we teach people how to fly fish. We teach people how to shoot bows and arrows. We teach them about hunting. We teach them about canoeing, kayaking, camping, hiking, how to use your GPS. And what our goal is, and I think our goal is the same as all the big outlets, let's get people into the outdoors. For some, I don't know who, but for me it's not. For me it's hunting drives me outdoors. For some, hunting doesn't play an aspect. But as long as you're in the outdoors, I'm happy. And if you can appreciate my passion, my love, my need to be in the woods, hunting season, and then even just walking through looking for sheds and enjoying the outdoors on hikes, it all stems from, for me especially, from my great-grandfather, and passing on his passion for the outdoors through his sports, which just transcended into all outdoor activities now.
Bill, in the warm-up, we talked about my illustrious career. I kind of chuckled because I survived. I in the Coast Guard and in search and rescue, and sometimes you just had to go out the door. And you said that you were smarter than I was because you were a pilot of the helicopter. And let's just take a moment here and thank the men and women of this country that go all in so we have our freedoms. And I want to spend a couple of minutes here, Bill, and just go ahead and share some things.
Well, my thoughts are, as we discussed earlier, the men and women in uniform are the reason we're allowed to be who we are. I mean, there are those of us who respect the United States and love it with all our heart, soul, mind, body, and strength. And there are some who take it for granted. And so everyone has the right to, I hate to put it bluntly, but to open their yap and disagree with things. And that's fine. As long as you remember you have the right to do that because somebody sacrificed their lives and their livelihood so that your rights are protected. The soldiers we have this day are the most wonderful thing on earth. I'm trying to personally get involved with some gentlemen right now that are starting a program called Discover Courage, and that's helping some of the SEAL teams and some of the things that they have to deal with. And whether it be Wounded Warriors, Discover Courage, or multiple other organizations help the armed forces, they allow us to be who we are. They are the reason we are America. And I give my thanks and support to them every day.
Let's talk about lessons learned from a gentleman that had the ability and had the opportunity and the blessings to travel worldwide. What are a couple of lessons learned that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Lessons learned, most important one is don't forget what's in your back doors. Because for the longest time, I've been a whitetail hunter. And I do that because they're just about everywhere. It's an affordable hunt. You need access to public land. And it's an incredible hunt. But with my travel, I've been afforded the opportunity to hunt all over the world, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, Africa. In fact, I just got back from Romania on a brown bear hunt, which was fantastic. But when the day is done, there's so much that we have easy access to. You don't have to have somebody bankrolling your hunts. You don't have to have the latest. To have the passion, you have to have the desire, and you can learn to get outdoors. And if you don't hunt now, seek out somebody who has hunted and have them teach you. That's honestly how I taught myself. My dad and mom were into hunting, but we'll just say not at the level that I am because I am overly gung-ho about hunting. I just enjoy being in the outdoors. When I was 15 years old, I sought out another freshman in high school, George Denoncourt. He was successful hunting that year, so I made sure to become friends with him, and we've had an ongoing friendship for the past, 40 years because, I knew he was someone who knew the outdoors, and he got me into it to that next level.
Bill, we're at the time of the show. You get a couple of minutes to tell us more about LL Bean and what you do and how you do it there with Guide to the Outdoors and about the retail store and then people that you want to give a shout out. You've done that well throughout the show, and here's the time that if you got a list of them, have at it.
I guess first and foremost, I would say LL Bean and Guide to the Outdoors. For me, it is very important. It gives people a chance to learn who LL Bean as a man and as a company is. It helps them understand our appreciation for the outdoors. And for me, Guide to the Outdoors is an outlet to invite people into my world of hunting and fishing and just plain outdoors and to enjoy everything that involves. I love your comments. I love when people write in and talk about their first hunt. I love to see their pictures because I get to live and I get just as much joy out of seeing somebody else's, success and happiness, and it drives me on to be better. LL Bean is all about that. Our retail store, I helped redesign a 35,000 square foot addition approximately 7 years ago now. And it's a true hunting and fishing lodge. It's a beautiful setup. We offer firearms, archery equipment, longbow, recurve, compounds, crossbows. We do rifles. We do shotguns, muzzleloaders, all the apparel. We make the finest apparel in the world. You could say I'm a little jaded, but I have one outfit I wear, the soft shell Gore-Tex jacket and pants. I've been wearing this outfit for 15 years now. I won't trade into another jacket or another pair of pants. It's just that good. But for, shout outs, if I could still do it, I would say to Peter Capstick, because he was a great author on Africa in general. And it wasn't whitetail specific, obviously, it's Africa. But he was one of the authors who could actually grab me and pull me into a story and a true appreciation of the outdoors. Is the folks like Ted Nugent, who is definitely a proud American, a well-outspoken gentleman, and a true hunter. I mean, I talked with Ted many times about his hunts in Africa in the early 70s. Other TV shows out there, the Brunsons, John and Gina, Addicted to the Outdoors, Lee and Tiffany with the Crush. I mean, there's shows that I can watch, and these are people who get it. They do the science. They are so to that nth degree true hunters and outdoors people that it just makes my heart full. And I don't mean to sound corny there, but it really does. And I guess most importantly, too, is my viewers. Because without them, we wouldn't have a TV show. Without them, they're our customers as well. And if we don't have the customers and we can't support them, then we aren't really doing our job as LL Bean. So, in my very verbose way of talking, I apologize, but I can't say enough for all the people in my life, my mom and my dad, and our Lord Jesus. I mean, if it wasn't for him, none of this would be possible. So at the end of the day, anyone who enjoys the outdoors is my hero. And I've been doing this for, I'm going to say, 40 years now. It never gets old, and I'm always learning. And I will learn just from the youth that haven't even started hunting yet. They'll ask questions. And when I was flying helicopters as a flight instructor, the most, information I ever learned was from students asking me why something happens this way. Why does a helicopter blade spin one way and the anti-torque rotor spin the opposite way? Why does this happen? And that transcends over into the hunting world. Why do deer do this? Why do they do that? And when you're hunting, you just know it. But when you start to really figure that out and define what makes it, that changes it, and it makes you a better hunter because now you have to think more focused and more just refined. It's not just a food. It's not just a bedding. What else comes into play? What about the wind? What about the amount of light? What about the time of year? And all that. So questions from new hunters as well as old. That I have to say thank you for everyone who asked me a question. And I apologize because a lot of times I won't know the answer.
Bill Gorman, it's been a privilege and a pleasure to have you on the show. LL Bean is iconic. LL Bean stands for hunting in North America and throughout the world. So again, sir, thank you so much for joining Whitetail Rendezvous today.
Bruce, thank you so much. This was an honor to me, and I look forward to catching up here in Freeport.
As your host at Whitetail Rendezvous, I want to thank each and every one of you for spending your time with us today. I look forward to sharing with you in the next episode more whitetail hunting tips, techniques, and stories. Until then, keep the sun at your back, the wind in your face, and always be patient.
If you have any tips, comments, or suggestions, or what we can do to improve, because we're here to serve you, let us know. Thanks for listening to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast at www.whitetailrendezvous.com.